Welcome to Becoming the Investor Agent. Super excited to be doing this presentation, especially right now when I really feel like Orlando was already a fantastic place for investors. It really was. I mean, we were already rated one of the top 3 cities in the country to invest in real estate. We've got interest rates at historical lows. We've got incredible real estate here. So we were already in a good place for investors. Now that we are in this, what Gil and I are calling the COVID window, I think that there's going to be a lot of investors I know there's going to be a lot of investors coming out of the woodwork. So for those of you guys who don't know, investors have been kind of waiting for this time. There has been talk for probably about 2 to 3 years that winter was coming. And what they meant by that was that the market was going to reset itself. There was going to be some kind of market correction where we were going to start seeing some really awesome real estate deals come into the market. Now, that we have been in such a good market for such a long time that they were just kind of waiting for this thing to happen. Now, we never saw the pandemic coming. And to be quite honest with you, once we get out of this pandemic, I'm not sure that things won't go right back to normal when it comes to Orlando real estate. So it's really important now when these investors are coming out of the woodwork that we're ready to work with investors, because I think we have a window. I think there's a COVID window. I think that there's a lot of sellers right now, or there are a lot of people in general who need money. There's a lot of sellers who maybe got caught up in the middle of this and are ready to sell that property and maybe give you a deal on it. I mentioned that I have a property in South Downtown right now that is, that I'm marketing at $30,000 under market value. And part of it was simply I told the for sale by owner, hey, look, in this time, you're not going to get a ton of showings. Let me see if I can get a good deal to somebody. And he was open to it. So super excited. I think that this class is very timely. Before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host, Nick Guadagnino from Specialized 247. Nick is a guy that we've worked with for several years. He's a trusted partner in property management. So he's the guy that's going to work with your investors when they buy an investment property and they need somebody to rent it out. He's the guy that eliminates headaches for investors. When investors are like, oh, I don't know, I want to buy my first investment, but I've never managed a property. No problem. Nick's going to take care of that. Or, you've got an investor who has been managing their own properties for a long time and is just sick of it. And he's thinking about either getting out of the game altogether or just like finding a better way to manage his properties. Nick is the guy that you call. He's also a great resource as well. Nick, just tell me your background, not only what you do, but how you can be a resource to the agents.
Great. Well, good morning and welcome everybody. It's great to be here. I've done a couple classes before. I see a lot of faces here that I've never met before, so it's great to meet you. I've been doing property management for 14 years now. So I've seen it all, heard it all, been involved in it all. The way that I can help you guys is there's a lot of people out there that have never been in the investment game or have been in it and haven't been doing it the right way. I'm a great source when it comes to meeting that investor that's looking for comps on rental properties, or that's looking to get out, as Bobby said, get out of managing their own properties and wants to buy more. At a certain point after you try to manage 1 or 2 properties by yourself and you want to buy that 3rd or 4th one, you're not going to be able to do it yourself anymore if you have a full-time job, which most people do that are investors. So I'm here to help you with that investor that is looking to find out where the best rental properties are, how much those properties are going to rent for. Do they need to get that property rent ready? Do they need vendors? Do they need handymen? Do they need plumbers? Do they need electricians? Anything that is going to be needed with your investor from the time that they are just looking to the time that they have closed and they need to find a tenant for it, I'm happy to help you with that.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Nick. And really, guys, Nick answers the phone, man. Like, when you guys need something, and a lot of times it's just advice on, areas for your investor to buy. So when your investor comes to you and says, hey, is Deltona a good place for me to buy a rental? What are the rental rates in that area? Nick is the guy that you can call to give you like really accurate information because he's managing properties in those areas. He'll tell you, hey, look, I'm having no problems renting properties out in Eustis. Like, you're getting good prices and good rental rates there, and here's what they are. So for you to have a guy like Nick on your team just makes you look like a total value add to your investor, because I'm always big on promoting yourself, not only as an individual, but that you have an investment team. I'm part of your investment team. Like, I'm a guy you can call up and we can analyze deals together and we can see if this is something that that is good for your investor. You have Nick Guadagnino, who's going to make sure that the rental rates are great in that area and give you information. And then honestly, for even just your traditional clients, Nick is a great resource, because how many times have your clients asked, do you know a great plumber? Do you know a great handyman? Do you know somebody who can do this? And I just lean on Nick. I just call Nick and say, hey, who do you know that does this? Because he's obviously got a book of repair people that he uses for his properties. So here's the deal, guys. This is called becoming the investor agent. And there's two aspects to this. One is becoming the kind of agent that can work with investors as a value add to investors. The other is you personally becoming an investor. So almost all the agents that I coach always tell me that part of the reason they got into real estate was to become an investor. And you should. This is one of the best investment games that there is. And you get to be on the ground level, not only learning what you're about to learn today, but you're on the ground level finding deals. And as you'll see, when it comes to investors, that's really the main thing. It's not about whether people have money to invest, because there's a ton of money out there. It's really about finding deals and knowing how to analyze those deals so that you don't waste an investor's time. Because the worst thing you want to do is work with an investor and keep sending them stuff they don't want, or things that you're like, dude, this is trash. Like, I would never buy this, because it makes your brand look bad and maybe you don't know exactly what you're doing with that. So let's get started. Let me see if my little clickers. Okay. So let's start with investor myths. I'm going to start with 3 investor myths because I want you guys to know something, because, a lot of times I feel like agents will say, well, investors are such a different animal. The same way they talk about commercial, commercial is such a different animal that I'm scared to work with investors. And I want you just to, guys, to learn a few myths that might ease some of your fears. Myth number 1 is investors know what they're doing. That's actually not true. I mean, just because somebody has money doesn't mean they know how to invest, which makes you way more valuable to them. And that's why this class is so important, because you're not only going to make a lot of money with investors, but you're going to save investors a lot of money. You're going to save a lot of investors from making bad decisions. So when I say investors, myth number 1 is investors know what they're doing. I don't know how many times I've gotten a doctor who has a lot of money but has never invested before, or somebody that thinks that they're investing in a great product. And when I do the numbers and I do the math, I figure out, man, the return on this is not actually good. I don't understand why they're buying this investment. When you figure out all the costs and all that stuff, it doesn't make sense. So remember that you're going to be a trusted professional. You're going to be the person that they're going to go to and say, hey, what do you think about this? And that's why classes like this are so important, because you're going to be the person to say, hey, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's a good deal. This is the kind of return you're making on that deal. Let me take you to this investment over here that I think is way better and safer for you. And they're just going to appreciate you like you wouldn't believe. And they're going to do more business with you, and they're going to send their friends over to you to do business. So myth number 1 is investors know what they're doing. That is BS, right? We don't know that. Now, if they're experienced investors, of course, but remember, sometimes people are coming in and it's their first investment, and you're going to be the person that they trust with this, okay? Myth number 2, you need money to be an investor. That's not true. And I say that specifically to you guys as agents. There's ways to get and be involved with investments without actually having the money to invest. Okay, so don't feel that it only you have to have money to make money. That's not necessarily true. Now, that's great if you do have the money, but oftentimes it actually makes sense for you to partner up with people, or maybe not even put your own money into the investment. Maybe you can get away with not actually having to spend your own money. So I'm about to show you 3 ways that you can be involved in an investment without actually having money. Okay. So here's 3 ways to invest without money. Number 1, and many of you have heard about this, is wholesaling a property. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, you have the ability to do what they call wholesale, which means it's simply, and when you hear this term out there, just think of it as a deal finder. When if somebody's a wholesaler, what they really are is a deal finder and a middleman from finding a great deal and then flipping that deal to an investor for a little bit more money than what they found the deal for. Okay, so you can do this simply, and the reason you don't need money to do this is because you're essentially flipping a contract. You're not actually flipping the property there. You're not going to own the property in this transaction, okay? All you really do is what they call lock up the property or tie it up. And the way you do that is you put a contract on it. So you as the buyer, you know, whether it's your individual name or I suggested like an LLC, right? So let's just say, you know, Downtown Investments LLC, and that's your company that you created. You can put a contract on the property. So let's say you find a property that's in a distressed situation, right? Somebody, you know, somebody inherited a property. This property is beat up and it really needs a ton of work. These people don't want to deal with it. And you do the numbers on it and you're like, oh my gosh, these people are going to give me this property at, you know, 30, 40, 50% below market value or after repair value, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you can tie up that property at, you know, 50% of its value. Well, if you tie that property up with a contract and you put on that contract that you can assign the contract to somebody else, then you can take that property. Let's keep it simple numbers. Let's say you think the property is worth $100,000 once it's all fixed up and repaired, and you know that you can put you can get it for $50,000. Well, you can lock it up for $50,000 and find an investor that'll pay you $60,000 and literally just make 10 grand for flipping that contract to the investor. That is a very basic explanation of wholesaling. We'll get slightly deeper into it later, but this is a way you can make money without actually investing your own money. Number 2 is find a deal and put it together. So what I mean by that is, you know, investors oftentimes, when somebody gets to the point where they have a lot of money, they don't really want to do a ton of work oftentimes, right? So, you know, that's the whole point. If you worked your whole life to get wealthy or to make a lot of money, the last thing I want to do is, you know, put all the work in. So if I have a great agent or a savvy agent who can find me a deal and put the deal together, you know, maybe it's not just about getting a commission on the property. Maybe what you negotiate for is to become a percentage of the deal, right? Say, hey, look, rather than me take a commission on this, why don't I put my commission into this property and get 10% of this deal? Or whatever the case may be. Or, hey, I've got this amazing deal. I've put the whole thing together. You just got to plug your money in on one side and we're going to get a return on the other side. And for that, I'm going to charge you a 10% or 20%, whatever you can negotiate. You know what? You know, I see like guys like Jose Amoroso who are on this call, right? So Jose, who's from the Philippines, might have investors in the Philippines that have literally nobody on the ground here, that don't understand Orlando real estate, and need an agent and need somebody who knows the landscape. And, you know, he can take that kind of knowledge that he has, put together an incredible deal, call his investors up in the Philippines and say, look, man, I find you an incredible deal. I've put the whole thing together. I want 20% of this deal, you know, for putting it together. And you know what? Some of those guys will be like, I'll do that all day, because you know what? It's worth that 20% to have somebody I trust and to have somebody who's out there putting deals together that I couldn't put together because I'm out here in the Philippines and Jose in Orlando. Okay. So think about that. Think about putting deals together. And the other one is just finding the money for a deal. So you might have somebody who brings you a great deal, right? And they say, look, you know, I need to find an investor with money, you know, to make this deal happen. Like, I have the deal. Bobby, can you find me some investors that'll invest in this? And obviously I'm going to do my numbers, right? And I'm going to make sure it's a great deal. This is why you're taking this class, guys. I don't want you to be pitching shitty deals because it's going to give you a bad name, right? So you find a great deal, you do the numbers, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a great deal. And then your job will now be to find the money for that deal. And then you can negotiate with the guy with the deal or the girl with the deal and say, hey, look, I want a piece of this thing. if I raise you the money for this deal, can I get, 5% of this deal? And, oftentimes because they don't have the money, but they have the deal, they'll also be willing to do something like that with you. So I want you to get into that savvy investor mindset, because it's so important, because there's different ways to skin a deal. Nick, I see you up there. Did you want to say anything about that?
No, I mean, just basically going back to what you were saying is that even with the percentage, when you invest your sweat equity in what you're doing, people see that you're a lot more vested in it. So when you do the percentage, deal that you're, you put yourself in it, they're seeing that you're a lot more invested in it, instead of just someone who's going to be coming in and saying, oh, I'm getting my commission, then I'm out. If you're going to remain in that deal after, it's going to put a lot more faith in you, because you are involved in that deal continuously moving forward. And it's going to show them that you have that much more, they're going to give you that much more trust because you're so invested in the deal after it's closed.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. So let's go into myth number 3. Investors are hard to work with. Just like anything else, only whether you're working with a traditional buyer or an investor, usually the difficulty that you have with a buyer or an investor as an agent has more to do with you not asking all the questions you need to ask them at the forefront. Because what happens is, if you go in and you get so excited, you got this cash investor, he's ready to go, and they're like, oh, I'm looking for properties. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, where are you looking for them? Oh, Orlando, up to 500,000. And you're like, okay, cool, fine. And then you just go off searching. Well, guess what, guys? You don't have enough information to really provide good investments for them. And that person's going to run you ragged, because you're going to start looking for $500,000 investments, in Orlando, which is a really, really big place. And you didn't narrow down what this person truly wanted. You didn't get specific about what kind of returns they wanted, or what kind of locations they wanted, what type of investment they wanted. And so the myth is that investors are hard to work with. Well, they're definitely a different animal. Okay, so this is one thing you do need to know about investors, is that they're not like traditional buyers. Okay, they are not emotional like that. Okay, or at least most of them aren't, right? So if somebody's buying a primary residence, I mean, this is the home maybe it's the first home they're ever bought, or they're selling their home and they've lived in it for 30 years. There's emotions tied to it. Investors are really doing math problems. It's not a lot of emotion. They're looking at a property and saying, does this math work for what I'm trying to buy? So it makes it seem like they're harder to work with, because you might look at a property and say, oh man, I found you this property, and they're advertising it at 200 grand, and the investor says, well, I want to offer 150, and you're like they're never going to accept $50,000 less, and this is so hard to work. Well, not true. I mean, that's what investors do. I mean, investors go out there, they make offers, and they're okay getting rejected. They're not emotional about it. They understand that 97% of the people are going to say no. They're going to say, no, there's no way I'm selling my stuff for $50,000 below value. That's okay. We'll move on to the next. So one pro tip I'll tell you there is as you're submitting offers for an investor, one, don't get worked up because they're trying to lowball, right? I mean, you still have to educate them, because sometimes they want to lowball too much, and you're like, dude, okay, but if you get it at this price, it's still a great deal, and I think we can get it at this price. So you'll still advise them in that respect. But I would say that you, as the agent, when you're submitting a lowball offer with an investor, make sure you explain to the listing agent what you're dealing with and what you've got, so that you as an agent don't look like, because there's agents that are way too emotional, and they're like, oh, they're personally insulted because you lowballed them, So in order to make sure that in case you run into one of those, I always make sure that if I put a lowball offer in for an investor, that I explain to the agent, hey, look, I'm working with an investor. Obviously, they're just doing a math problem, and they're looking for deals out there. It looks like your property needs a lot of work. This is the reason we're offering this. It's not just because we're jerks and we just go out there doing this, or it isn't because I'm an inexperienced agent and I didn't do my comps. Yes, I did do my comps, but I'm working with an investor, and my investor has to put money into fixing it up, and he still has to have room to make money on the deal. Okay? So those are Go ahead.
Bobby, I was going to say too, a lot of investors, if there's somebody that's going to be renting it out and they're low on their rental estimate and they don't know that they can get a lot more for rent for it, they're going to offer less on the property as well. So if it's an investor that's looking to rent it out, make sure that they know the rental comps in the area so that they are going to come in at a price that's going to be, a good return for them. If they think they're only going to get 1,200 when the rent is actually 1,500, then they've got a lot more room to work with in the sale price as well.
That's an incredible point, guys. And I'll go into it because we're going to go into some math. Don't get scared. We're going to do some math today. Okay. And so we're going to actually do some calculations. You're going to learn how to analyze an investment very quickly, at least the general basics of it. But what he's saying is this, for those guys who maybe are not as adept with investors, what he's saying is that if you find a property, right, and let's say it's a rental, right? So somebody wants to buy a rental and they look at the property and they want to offer significantly less because the property's, let's say it's renting out for $950 a month. Okay. Well, guess what? They might be renting it low. How many times have you heard from a landlord that like, oh, well, I kept them at $950 because they're such nice people and they always pay on time and they've been with me for 5 years. So, but guess what? What if the real rent should be now $1,150? Well, that means that property is worth a lot more to the investor. So you need to know that. You need to talk to guys like Nick and find out, hey, what's the value? They'll call that a value add opportunity. What's the value add opportunity here? Because what if I buy this and then when this person's lease is up, or if the person is out of there, I can raise these rents to $1,150. And now suddenly my investment becomes way more valuable, and that will affect what we offer on the property. So we'll get deeper into that, guys. But thank you, Nick, on that. So let's talk about investor principles. Because remember, I want you not only to be able to work with investors, but I want you guys to be the investor. And part of that is you need to start thinking like an investor. You should just start doing this regardless, because if you ever want to retire, the only way I know how to do that is to have money make money. And, you're never going to be able to retire trading hours for dollars. Okay. So you have to start being in an investor mindset, no matter who you are, no matter what industry you're in. So let's talk about the 3 principles. Number 1, and it sounds really basic, is don't lose money. Okay. This is something, the reason that I put this up here is because a lot of times people focus so much on making money. They're so excited at the shiny objects of making a big return that they forget to de-risk or lower their risk to make sure they don't lose what they've already made. The saddest thing would be to, to have $200,000 in cash to invest and lose that $200,000 because you made a bad investment. So you need to actually de-risk situations. You need to look at a situation and figure out, hey, is this too risky for me? If this goes bad, what's the worst case scenario here? Because the last thing you want to do is lose what you already made. Guys, if you're an investor agent and you've, in the next 5 years in real estate, you put away, $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, the last thing I want you to do is dump that all into one investment, have that investment go south, and now you're back at zero. Okay. So number 1 investment principle is don't lose money. So what are some ways not to lose money? Okay. Here are some ways not to lose money, not only for yourself, but for you to educate. So find ways to de-risk an investment. What do I mean by that? So what's a way to de-risk an investment? Let's say you're a rookie investor and you're starting with an investment and you're like, man, this looks like a really good investment, but I'm scared. I'm a little bit scared about this. Well, one way to de-risk it is to partner up. I might call Nick up and say, hey, Nick, this is my first investment. I mean, you wouldn't do this. I'm just saying if Nick's my buddy, right? Nick's not handing out money right now. But let's say Nick's my friend, right? And he is. And I call him up and I say, okay, I got this investment, man, but it's my first one. I think it's really good. Take a look at it. Let's do this thing together, man. Rather than me put all my money in here, let me just put half and you put half. And then that way I only have half of my money at risk now. And then we can both share in that risk together. That's the way to de-risk it. You might de-risk an investment by lowering your cost of rehabbing it, right? So you might say, hey, you know what? Maybe what I'll do is my good friend Nick is a contractor. and maybe I'll get Nick involved in this investment, and Nick will actually do all this work for me at cost. So I'm not going to pay retail for all this repair work that I'm going to be doing. And I will de-risk that investment, and I will spend less on repair costs. And maybe I give Nick a portion of the deal. Say, hey, Nick, I'm going to pay you costs for everything, but I'm going to give you X percentage of this deal at the end for giving me everything at cost. That's a way to de-risk that. It could be a way to de-risk it would be to, a lot of people use private money to do investments and flips, and that money is expensive, guys. So private money could run you, 9, 10, 11, 12%. And guess what? That costs you a lot of money every month to hold that property. Maybe you go to somebody who that has money and say, hey, I'm doing an investment. Would you let me borrow this money at 6% and get yourself a good return? Or maybe you approach the owner of the property and see if they'll do seller financing. Maybe they own the property free and clear, and rather than borrow money at 12%, you go to the owner and say, hey, I want to do a deal with you. I'll give you X amount of money as a down payment, and you let me borrow 60% of the purchase price. You become the lender and let me borrow it at 6 or 7% versus you paying 12%. That's a way to de-risk things, right? So always be looking for that. Number two, and this you'll hear a lot from investors, is fall in love with the profits, not the project. This could happen. Let me give you an example of how this could happen. You get somebody, and I've had this happen with an investor that I know, right? They built their first new construction home, right? They bought a piece of land and they built it. Well, they fell in love with like designing the home and putting like all the best stuff in there. And at the end of it, they overran their costs to build that property so much that it lowered their profits so drastically that at the end of the day, they ended up making almost nothing on their investment. Well, that's because they fell in love with the project and not the profits, right? They fell in love like, oh, I love, these kind of floors. Yeah, they're an extra $2 a square foot, but I think they're pretty and I want to put them in here because I want to design it the way that I want to. Well, before you know it, your costs skyrocket and your profits go down. That's because you didn't fall in love with the math problem. You fell in love with the actual project. Okay, guys? So you'll hear that a lot. Remember this, you make money when you buy. Okay, so if you're an investor out there, whether you're an agent investor or working with one, you want to make your money when you buy, meaning you want to get the great deal up front. It's not like I'm going to buy this now. It's not a great deal now, but I expect the market to go up. Right? So you're doing the whole crystal ball thing where you're like, oh, well, I think in the next few years, Orlando is going to blow up and that's when I'll make my money. That's a bad strategy, guys. You want to make money when you buy. You want to make money right now when the getting's good. In this COVID window, you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, okay, I got that property right now in South Downtown. I did the numbers. That property's worth $290. I can sell it for $260. I'm already $30,000 below. Just to give you some reference, that property's in my neighborhood. My property got appraised for $330. I'm telling you conservatively that I think it's worth $290, and he's selling it at $260. I feel good about that. I think if you're a buyer, you have that room, and I've already made some equity there up front. Even if the market gets a little even more shakier, I have room there. And guess what? Long term, once this COVID thing is over, once all that, Orlando's trajectory is up. Okay, so I feel good about making my money when I buy on that particular property. The next one is math is your friend. Don't ignore the numbers. Don't ignore the math. If it's not good, walk away. Do the numbers. Be conservative. Don't do your math based on best case scenarios. Do your best case, do your worst case, and decide how much risk you're willing to take and make a great decision. And I'll show you that math here coming up shortly. And finally, diversify your investments. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket. If you have $200,000 to invest, don't dump it all into one property. I hear this a lot with agents out there. So as many of you guys know, some of you guys might be from some other brokerages. I coach real estate agents, and they'll tell me, hey, I have a buyer right now and they're going to buy this property and they're going to pay all cash for it. They're going to buy it for $200,000. And I'm like, well, why are they doing that? Oh, they just want to, buy a good investment. I'm like, yeah, but, is that all the money they got? So they're going to put all the money they have all into this one property. What if that goes bad? Like, what if you buy a property cash and a pandemic comes. I mean, let's just say a pandemic comes. I mean, I know it's not realistic. I know it could never happen, but let's say a global pandemic comes. You know, where does that money go? That property you bought cash for 200 grand is now worth 150 grand. Where did the 50 grand go? It just disappeared. It just disappeared. So when I have an agent that says, hey, I have this, whether it's a primary residence buyer or an investor buyer, and they tell me, Bobby, these people want to buy it all cash, I always ask them why. Why are they doing that? How much money do they actually have? Is that all the money they got? I think it's too risky, especially now, guys, when interest rates are at all-time lows. Okay, you got to understand this, guys. People are quoting in the 3%. And when I say all-time lows, I mean all-time, like historical. Like, I mean like the history of the United States kind of low. So borrow, why don't you just put 20% down, okay? Keep the rest of that money in your bank. Borrow the money at a really low interest rate. And guess what you can do with that money? What can they do with the rest of that money that they didn't put into there, Nick? What can they do?
They can go and buy another one.
They could go buy another one. They can go put 20% down on another property or 25% down on another property. So now instead of dumping all your cash into one investment, you've now bought 3 or 4 investments with the money you've got because you leveraged the bank's cheap money to do it. And by the way, you're less exposed on each one of those properties. Remember, go ahead.
I'll say the most successful investors that I've worked with in the time that I've been doing this are people that leverage their money, are people that have mortgages on their property. I've worked with people before that have done this is all the cash that I have and bought their property. And then 6 months, a year later, when the AC goes out or when the water heater goes out and they don't have the money to do that massive repair because they weren't thinking about it and they have just dumped everything they have into this property. And when a maintenance repair comes up, they are freaking out. So it's always good to ask them, do you have enough reserves in case a pandemic comes or in case there's a massive, maintenance problem that you've got at this property. I never recommend anybody buying a property all cash unless they have enough of it to buy and, to do what they need to do if a problem arises.
Right. And that's why I say too, ask them, how much, you can be honest with investors. Hey, how much money you have to invest? Because the reality is if 200 grand is all you got, I would never do that, but if they tell you, hey, look, I got 20 million, man,
and these people are going to thank you. They're going to thank you because they don't know, because there are people out there that preach the all cash method. And if they don't understand what it takes, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to buy it all cash. And then, all the rent that comes in, I'll be able to use that. Well, they don't think you still have taxes. You still have your monthly insurance payment every month. There's still expenses. So you still have management fees when you hire a management company. There are expenses associated with every month. And if you have a big, expense that comes down the road 3 or 4 months later and you don't have it, or something happens in their personal life and they need that money, they don't think about that kind of stuff. They sometimes come into it and just, think I need to have no expenses every month, or I need to limit my expenses every month. When the interest on, an investment property that's $100,000 or $150,000 every month is not that much compared to what they could do with that money somewhere else.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. So principle number 2 is income is the only outcome and cash flow is king. So this is something that I remember Tony Robbins saying, income is the only outcome. And what that means is that you have to have money coming in, basically every single month. Real estate's a great example of this, guys. So, I always say that real estate inherently has an income problem, right? Because we don't get monthly cash flow, right? We're not on salary. We do deals and transactions, which means we're always chasing deals. We're always chasing checks. We don't have a cash flow. So we always must be thinking, especially as a realtor, how do I build cash flow? Because I know that I can coach an agent to make 6 figures in this and even 7 figures if they do this thing right? But at the end of the day, as you're making that money, you should be thinking, how do I also create consistent income? And what I mean by that is income while you sleep. That's the reason that people work with Nick Guadagnino. What they want to do is buy investments that produce them income. So once they've bought, right? Nick manages that investment, and while they sleep, checks come in. And that is what you're looking for, whether you're an investor or you're a realtor. You need to figure out ways to do that. So residual income is the key, right? That's what most wealthy people, wealthy investors, because that's what investors are trying to do. They're trying to get wealthy, or they're trying to make their money make money. At some point in time in life, guys, you're going to have to realize that you're not going to be able to work for money, that you're going to have enough money or enough investments that make you money while you sleep, so that you can actually walk away from whatever you're doing, right? Or at least have the option to walk away. So here's some residual incomes, right? Number one, rental property. So, you yourself buy either rental single family, you can buy multifamily, you can buy apartment complexes, whether they're 5 units, 10 units, 20 units. Nick will manage all of those for you. You can buy commercial properties, you can buy, office buildings, you can buy whatever. But the main thing is that people are paying you rent, right? You own the property and you're making a great return on what these people are paying you. Number two is residual income from your business. So maybe you have a side business, or you have another business that you own, and you've got it to the point where you're a true business owner, where you're just kind of managing it, and it kind of runs itself and you're making money. Or being in a multi-level business. That's another way to own a business very inexpensively. Now, for some of you on the call that happen to be with EXP, they've actually combined a multi-level concept with real estate, which is why I think it's brilliant, right? They solve the income problem. You have the opportunity to essentially have like an investment portfolio within your real estate career, right? So the way I look at it is by simply building your organization or building your downline, you're almost buying, actually it's better than buying rental properties, because you don't actually have to spend any money to get that return, right? So building a downline, building residual income is huge. And part of the reason that I am part of that model. The third one is, math is your friend. I think this might be a repeat of residual income, the one before. So I think that's two. So rental properties, residual income from your business, or downline. I'll fix that slide later. Number three, don't waste a crisis. Guys, I did this slide before I knew a pandemic was coming. Okay. So it's just crazy that we are now in this COVID window, right? And what I mean, don't waste a crisis is do the opposite of what everyone else does when things like this happen. I can tell you right now that there are investors that are salivating at what's going on with this pandemic, because they're realizing that they're going to be able to pick up stock at way below value. They're going to be able to pick up real estate at below value. They're going to be able to buy businesses at way below value. Okay. You know what? There's going to be property management companies that aren't as successful as Nick's company that are going to be ready to sell right now at a fraction of the price, because somebody's like, hey, you know what? I need the money and I'm in a bad position here and I need somebody else to help me out. I'd rather sell to a guy like Nick and Nick's company and have him do that. And Nick's going to get a significant deal on that and significant returns. So whenever something like this happens, whether it's a recession, whether it's a market shift, whether it's a pandemic, all great investors say, now is my time. Now when everybody's running, right? Everybody's selling my stock is going to go low. No, yeah, that's true. If you had it in the market, you're going to take a dip. But if you have more money, put more money into the stock market right now, because you're going to get those gains on the way up. So don't waste a crisis. Okay, so here's a way to 3 ways to capitalize on a crisis. Number one, find distressed properties. There's going to be people right now. And by the way, distress can mean anything right now. Distress can mean that for sale by owner I just picked up the other day that now wasn't getting barely any showings and definitely isn't getting any showings now. And now more than ever needs an agent to help them market that property. So you're telling me that in a pandemic, your main form of marketing is like Zillow and that sign in your front yard, and then now the pandemic comes and now you're barely getting anybody driving by your property, which is what your sign was going to do for you. Well, why don't we use the power of the MLS and my marketing skills to make sure that you get what you need? Right now, I'm telling you guys, as agents, FSBOs are low-hanging fruit. Go after them right now. Talk to them about what you can do. Talk to them about how you can show people safely properties during the pandemic, that you're prepared for this, okay? Capitalizing on cycles in the market. We are in a cycle. We were supposed to, there was supposed to be a market correction. I think, you know, maybe the pandemic exacerbated that, but in 2008, multiple businesses were created, multiple millionaires and billionaires were created because the market crashed in 2008, because those guys were waiting. They understand that the market goes in cycles, you know? So when it gets here to the very top, you know, the next place it can go is right down, right? So when you're an investor, what happens is you invest when it's low, you get your returns on the way up, and then it hits a peak. And if you're smart and you know when the peak is, when you're close to the peak, then you start pulling up all your money, right? You cash out and you wait, right? And then the market drops, and guess what? You start investing again, and then you catch the way back up, right? So that's the way you do that in cycles. And then you buy when people are fearful, okay? Which is right now. Right now, people are fearful. You know, you buy right now, okay? Like I said, it could be a business. It could be a property. It could be stock. Right now, people are looking to that are fearful are just gonna sell all their stuff for cheap. They're gonna try, you know, they're gonna batten down the hatches. They're gonna get scared. Well, guess what? This is the time when the investors come out. They're like, oh, nah, it's bright and sunny for me, baby. I'm gonna go grab as much stuff as I can. Okay, so now let's get into actual investments. I want you guys to actually know how to analyze these investments, how to find these investments. So one of the main ones you'll hear is fix and flip, okay? And all that means is we're gonna buy low, we're gonna fix the property up so that it's worth more money, and then we're gonna sell it and we're gonna make, you know, the profit in between. That's a fix and flip, right? I fix it and then I flip it and I sell it, okay? You're gonna hear that. That's just normal terminology. I like to quote my business partner, Gil Ramos, before this slide, which is curious people make more money. I touched on it earlier, okay? The reason people say investors are hard to work with is because you did not ask enough questions, okay? You start looking for stuff and you didn't have all the answers. And almost all the times when agents come to me and they say, oh, I got a investor that wants to buy this, they always give me like 1 or 2 pieces of information. And I'm always like, dude, I don't know enough to tell you anything right now. Like, you haven't asked enough questions. So let me show you the questions you need to ask. You write this down, take a picture of the screen, but these are important questions for you to ask, okay? So when you're talking to a fix and flip investor, okay, what property type do you prefer to flip? Okay, people have a what they call a buy box, okay? You know, that's another term you'll hear, like, I have a buy box. What that means is I have a box, a parameter, and if my property fits within my criteria, then it's in my buy box. If it doesn't, it's outside of my buy box. And for each investor, their buy box might be a little bit different. Okay, so this is how you find out. This is how you go from out here searching for $500,000 properties in Orlando to searching for, you know, $500,000 fix and flips in Winter Garden with, you know, maximum $50,000 worth of fix-up repairs, only single-family homes. You know, some of them might get specific to the neighborhood. You don't know until you ask these questions. So what type of property type? Are you going to invest in single families, condos, townhomes? I can tell you, actually, I'll let Nick tell you, you know, what he believes, and I think I know the answer to this, is the best investment. If somebody's looking to buy a single family, actually, you know what, Nick, let's wait, because this is a fix and flip. We'll talk about the rentals in a little bit, but we'll go from there. So fix and flip, whether it's single family, condos, townhomes, if there's a good margin there and it makes sense for them, they're going to want to flip it. Okay. Next question. Tell me about your most successful investment. Okay. This is a good way for you guys to get a lot of information without having to basically ask them a ton of questions, right? So, you know, you might ask them some questions and they might be vague and be like, out of curiosity, so far, Robert, what's been your best investment so far? Can you tell me the story of how you found it? Can you tell me the parameters? And when they tell you that story, you're going to get a great picture of what they're looking for. Oh, my best investment was this property that I bought out in Deltona. I bought it for X amount. It needed about $20,000 worth of repair. It was worth X amount. And in 3 months, I was able to flip it just like this and get it sold. Now you have a good picture of what this guy's looking for. Next question, what's your ideal return on investment? This is very important, guys. You know, for you to feel you had a successful investment, what do you need to make? So this could be answered in a couple ways. So depending on how sophisticated your investor is or how experienced, they might answer you differently. So if I think I'm talking to an experienced investor, I just say, hey, you know, what kind of return on investment you're looking for, and let them talk. They might tell you, hey, look, I'm looking for a 20% return on my flips. Or, hey, I'm looking for, if I make at least $20,000 a flip, I'm happy. Okay. And then you might want to ask a follow-up questions. Okay, but are you going to spend $500,000 to make $20,000? Oh, no. I wouldn't probably spend over $250,000. Okay, so you're willing, if you spend $250,000 and you make a 20%, you make $20,000 on your property, you're going to be happy? He's like, yep. Okay, I have a good feeling now of what I can find this person. So they might give you a percentage, they might give you a dollar amount, but you need to know what they expect for return, because you're going to have to analyze this prior to showing them. The last thing you want to do is start sending them out investments. Once again, just slapping stuff against the wall, hoping it sticks. And they're like, dude, Bobby always sends me crap. You know, he's just shoveling crap to me. He just, anytime he finds anything, he just never analyzes it for me. Remember, investors made their money. They want to do less work. The less work you can make them do, and you have all the numbers put in place, you have a nice presentation put in place, they'll be like, I like Bobby, man. When I go to Bobby, I open up this email. Hey, there's a PDF attached that tells me what I'm going to make, what the repair costs are, what the comps are, all that stuff. And I can make an easy, accurate decision on this. And you know what? They're still probably going to do their own research, but you did the research up front. And if their research matches yours, watch out. They're going to love you, because they're going to be like, okay, this person gets me. Okay. The next question, what's your budget for the purchase? What is your budget for rehab? So some people might be like, oh, my budget's $250,000. Okay. Does that include the money you're going to use to rehab? So would you be willing to buy a $250,000 property that needed $50,000 in return and repairs? And they might be like, yeah, okay, I'm willing to do that. Okay. So the purchase price is your max is $250,000, but you're willing to put up to $50,000 in repairs in addition to that. Or they might tell me, no, $250,000 is all in. That's it. That's all I got. So, you know, it has to fit within $250,000. So that means if I find a property that is $250,000, then I have to back out. You know, I have to say to them, okay, well, this guy's willing to put, you know, $50,000. That means that really my purchase price has to be $200,000 or below for this to work. Okay. Ask them if there's a max rehab amount they're willing to do. What locations do you focus on? And always ask, and why? Why do you focus on this location? What's your reasoning for this? Because you might find, once again, that these investors don't know what they're doing. And you might be like, actually, there's a way better area that you can be investing in rather than, you know, focusing on this area. And another question, if we find you a deal that fits this criteria, how quickly can you move and close on the property? So here's, you know, how motivated is this person? Because, you know, you don't want to be finding these great deals for somebody that never pulls the trigger, you know. I want to know somebody who's ready to move, because if I find you this deal, you know, Cindy, if I find you this deal, we're going to have to move on it quick. Because guess what, guys? If you find a great deal out there, guys, guess what? Somebody else is going to find it, and they're going to move way quicker than you. I'm telling you that you need to have your investors prepared. When I find you this deal, I need to know you're willing to put a contract in within hours of me telling you this, because it'll be gone. Good deals do not last. Okay, so those are the questions. So here's some ways that you can find deals. So for yourself, there's somebody in the waiting room, Nick.
I got it.
So here's a way you guys can find deals for yourselves or for your investors. Number one is, guys, connect with agents. Okay, connect with agents. Other agents who are savvy, who are hustlers, who work with investors, have deals. Okay, so you making connections with other agents. I always ask agents, do you have any off-market deals? That's a question. That's a pro tip. Do you have any off-market deals? Because investors love off-market deals. And off-market simply means, hey, this isn't publicly listed on the MLS. This isn't publicly listed anywhere. I'm the only one who knows about it, or just the people that I know about it. That deal that I have in South Downtown in SoDo, that's an off-market deal. Only the people on this call know about this deal, okay? So that means you can go to somebody right now, a friend of yours who's been looking to buy, and say, hey, look, I got this deal right now that's in South Downtown, that's $30,000 undervalued, getting remodeled right now. You know, this could be perfect for a primary residence person who wants some equity in their property. You know anybody. Guys, you're going to get 4 or 5 buyers from that, even if they don't buy that property, right? But the main thing is build a network of savvy hustler agents, okay, that have deals, and always ask them, do you have any off-market deals? Number 2, connect with wholesalers. So we talked a little bit about wholesaling. We'll talk about it again, but there's people out there that wholesale basically full time, and those guys always have deals. I get on their email list. I suggest you do too. When you see some good investments, even if it's just to show your investors that you have access to property. So remember one thing when you're working with wholesalers is that oftentimes when they quote you a price for a property, it oftentimes does not include your commission. So you're going to want to bump that price up to include a commission for yourself, or ask the wholesaler if in that price it does include some money for you. And a lot of wholesalers will be like, well, I'm willing to give you about $3,000 if you sell it at this price. And then I might just bump it up.
You got a question. Where do you find the wholesalers?
Where do you find wholesalers? Great question. So wholesalers don't hide, right? So, you know, you've heard of a few of them. There's a few companies that do it in town that you might have heard of. Stonebridge is one of them. I work with a company called Equity Pro. That's also a wholesaler. There's Kona. There's one called Kona Real Estate Services. There's one called Key Glee. Key like key, and then Glee, Glee, Key Glee. But if you want to just find people, go online, go on LinkedIn. Who buys? You want to build up a list of investors, just look for people that say they buy properties in any condition. You want to find wholesalers. You ever seen those crappy signs on the corner of the road that say 3-2 investment worth, ARV 300, price 225? Guess what? That's a wholesaler. Whatever that number is, call it. You just got yourself a wholesaler in your back pocket. Build up a whole team of these guys, because they're going to, and by the way, they're not all great. So you're going to have to dig through their stuff. But the more people that you get, more lists that you get, and guess what? They're excited to have you on their list. They're trying to flip properties to investors no matter what. So they're not hiding. You can go in and look these people up online as well. Like I said, we buy ugly homes. We buy homes in any condition. Put that in your Google search, and guess what? You're going to come up with a ton of wholesaling companies. You're going to and guess what? You're also going to come up with true investors too. You're going to come up with people who actually have the money to buy, right? And will buy those properties from you. Okay. Number 3, MLS strategic searches. So a lot of wholesalers actually find their properties on the MLS, right? They find deals on the MLS. I won't get heavy into MLS searches, but for instance, you can search on the MLS for only properties that have been on the market 100 days and over, or whatever amount of days and over, 120 days, 90 days, things like that. Those are usually deals that have issues, right? So if a property's been sitting in a seller's market, if a property's been sitting for 100 days, guys, it's a good indication that either they need some work or there's a bad agent. Guess what? You know what? Sometimes a great investment opportunity is a shitty agent. Because if a shitty agent lists a property and they put terrible pictures, terrible descriptions, they list the property before it's ready. They do all sorts of things that actually cost the seller money. You can actually go in there, and now the property's been on the market 120 days, and guess who's getting desperate? The seller's getting desperate. And now they're willing to accept something way, way less. So you can come in with your investor and say, hey, you know what? Let's offer them 30 grand less, see if they'll take it. Sometimes you don't know their situation. Sometimes they're just like, I need to move. I need to get out of here. I need to get this done. And you're going to find an incredible, incredible deal. The other one is connect with lawyers and accountants. Remember, divorce lawyers are having to sell, properties. Lawyers are great business contacts. They deal with business people all the time. They deal with investors all the time. They're good sources to find deals. And so are accountants. Accountants know a lot about people's financials. They know when people come to them and as a trusted advisor and said, do you know anybody who will buy this property? Or, hey, I got to get rid of this property. Do you know anybody? And if you're the agent that knows them and that is an investor agent that has a good book of investors, you'll be the person that they call. And then finally, you can buy lists. So many wholesalers actually buy lists. No reason you can't either. So let me tell you something that I'm doing right now that I think is going to be huge, and you guys can feel free to steal it. So for those of you guys that don't know, some of the big fix and flip companies, right? So just so you know, there were some major fix and flip companies out there that just shut everything down. One of them was Zillow Offers. Okay, Zillow Offers is just a fix and flip company. That's all they do. They buy properties low, they rehab them, they sell them, right? Open Door, OfferPad. They're not writing contracts right now. You know who is? Express Offers, which is the same thing. They're actually almost like a aggregation of flipping companies. So what EXP did was they got a bunch of smaller companies that do flips and buy and hold investments, and they pooled them together and they created buy boxes for different areas. So I'm getting certified in Express Offers so that I can make cash offers to sellers right now. Well, I can buy a list and do mailers with that. I can buy a list and say, I've got people offering cash right now. Oh, Zillow's not offering, Open Door's not offering, but guess what? I'm offering cash offers, and your property might fit a buy box. So that right there is a pro tip, guys. You can make a ton of money right now if you align yourself with somebody who can buy properties cash, and you can be the person to find those deals out there. And you can buy lists that are very specific. You can buy a list of people who are non-owner occupied homes with a certain amount of equity in them. And, it costs you a little bit of money, but that's what wholesalers, a lot of them do. They buy those lists and they do mailers. They spend money every month doing mailers until somebody gives them a call and says, hey, what are you going to offer me cash for my property? And bam, you got a seller on your hands. Okay. So next, I love numbers and numbers love me. Once again, math is your friend. That quote was from a guy named Keith Cunningham, who goes to these Tony Robbins events that I'm such a fan of, right? And Keith Cunningham says, I love numbers and numbers love me. Don't avoid the numbers. Let's be able to do the numbers right. So I'm about to teach you some math. Don't get scared. This is simple math. We're going to go through it together. Okay. So number one, you got to know a few things. ARV, you're going to see that a lot in the investment world. That's after repair value. What will the home sell for fully remodeled? Okay, so that's even different than market value. So if you go comp a property, even if it's like if the property's not updated, that's not ARV, because remember, your investor is going to remodel that property. They're going to put quartz countertops in there. They're going to put new flooring in there when they flip it. Okay, so when I says after repair value is, I want to know what fully remodeled properties, depending on what your investor is going to do, would sell for, and I would say would sell for quickly. So remember, it costs an investor money to hold on to a fix and flip, right? If I buy that property and it doesn't sell for 6 months, that hurts me. As a fix and flip investor, I want to go in there, buy that property, fix it up as fast as possible, and put it on the market at the end of that first month. If I'm smart, and make sure it doesn't take me longer than 3 months to sell it, because the longer it goes, the worse it gets for me, right? The holding costs, and potentially if you have a hard money loan on it, oh my God, now you're paying a payment every month, and that's eating into your profit, okay? So ARV, after repair value, and I would pick something that would sell fast. So make sure you have an attractive price. The cost of the purchase and sale, we're gonna have to know that, right? We're gonna have to know, obviously, the price. What will it cost you to buy the property and sell? The cost of closing, right? Because there's cost involved with buying and selling the property. Okay, guys. So remember, if you want to work with an investor, guess what? They're going to pay you your commission when you sell that flip, right? That's part of the cost of doing this. Cost of repairs, we're going to have to know. And so we want to figure out what is the right price, right? So if you're analyzing an investment for an investor or yourself, what is the right price. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm going to give you a rule of thumb, okay? And this is simply a rule of thumb. What I'm going to give you is enough to analyze a deal quickly to know whether it's even in the ballpark range. So I don't want you to take this as pure fact. I want you to take it because I need you to come up with a number, and you can always wiggle that number up or back or whatever you want to do, but at least you know in a general range where you need to be. So one rule of thumb that a lot of fix and flip investors have is the 70% rule, okay? And what that simply means is that whatever they spend on the purchase price on the property plus repairs, so everything you've spent to acquire that property and fix it should end up being 70% of the after repair value, okay? So I'm gonna give you an example of that, okay? So let me just give you a basic example with like 100 grand. So if I think that the ARV is $100,000, right? So after I repair this property, it's gonna be worth attractive price for this on the open market, it's 100 grand, okay? Then I take that number and I take 70% of it, okay? Just right off the rip, okay? So I'm down from $100,000 to $70,000. What if it takes $10,000 to repair that property? I subtract $10,000. So what should my purchase price be? Should be $60,000, okay? Or somewhere in that range, okay? Depending on what your investor's parameters are. If they're not that conservative, you might be able to buy it for $70,000 because they're like, you know what? I ain't worried about it. As long as I make 10 grand on this, I'm fine. You know, go ahead and snag it up for 70. Maybe that's the case. But I'm telling you, as a rule of thumb, you take 70% of ARV, subtract your repairs, and that should be where it should be. So let me test you guys. Okay, so use the chat box. Don't be scared. I don't care if you make mistakes, guys. I want you to try this math problem. So everybody right now, okay, get their phones out, get your calculator pulled up, okay, and open up your chat. So here's the example. I have a property with the ARV of $335,000. The repair costs are $45,000. What price should you offer based on my formula? Let me remind you what the formula is. Oh, I gave you the answer, sorry. The formula is 70% rule. So I'm going to take that 70% and I'm going to subtract the repair costs. What should my, okay, I got Jacquel.
189.50.
189,500. Good job, Jose. That's right. Sylvie, you got 203. So it's 189. So how did I get that? I took 335,000. I multiplied it by 70%. Okay, I got that number. So now I'm at my baseline 70. I took that number and then I subtracted 45,000 from that, and it gave me 189,000. Once again, these numbers could change. What if the repair costs, you think the repair costs are 45, right? You talk to your investor about this. He says, yeah, it's 45 for normal people, but I do my own work. I can do all this at cost, and I can do all this shit for $20,000. Well, guess what? Now I can increase my offer by 25. I know that my numbers just changed, right? I just wanted you to get that number so you could have it in your head, and then we can talk to your investor about it and say, hey, look, here's what I'm assuming that the profit will be on this. So the answer is 189.5, as we talked about. So how does this look in real life? Let's talk about it. So if the ARV was 335, let's talk real life stuff. When you sell it for 335,000, remember though, there's going to be 6% commissions if you're smart and you're the person who's the agent who sells it for them, right? That's the beauty about an investor. You're going to make money when they buy it, and then you're going to relist that property when they want to sell it. So now you've got 6% closing costs. 6% commissions. I added an additional 3% for any cost for closing. So I'm just being conservative. I want to take some stuff out here. I want some real numbers here, guys. So I went ahead and subtracted 9% right off the rip. So that's 30 grand in costs. Let me subtract that $45,000 in repairs. Let me subtract the $189,500 I paid for it, and my profit should be close to $70,000 on that property. Now, if my investor tells me, hey, I'm fine with a $50,000 profit, now I can move around. Now I can say, okay, well, instead of paying 190 for it, let's pay 210, you know, and get the deal.
Bobby, you have a question. They want to know, how do you determine the ARV? Is it just standard comps?
Great question, Tinashe. So yes and no. If somebody was buying a property in a neighborhood, like comping is another class. We'll do comps classes coming up. You know, I do a comp class probably every single month, and it's a skill. It's such a foundational skill. I want to teach it every month because you need to know how to do this. But let's say an investor wants to buy in a particular neighborhood. I'm looking inside that neighborhood. I'm looking at 100 different indicators, and I come up with a price. But what I want to find out is, and if you're lucky enough, you'll find a property that's been updated. Okay, so what I would say is it's not just the comp. It would be a comp for what are homes selling that are in great condition. Because even if you comp the property and you're comping properties that are not in great condition or needs updating, right? It looks like it came straight out of 1980, right? Well, your investor property is going to have quartz countertops. It's going to have, you know, wood tile floors or fake wood tile. It's going to have a new roof. It's going to have all that. So I know that properties that are in that condition are going to sell for a little bit more. So basically, what would somebody pay and pay for quickly, right? What would somebody buy quickly that was remodeled in that property? So do a comp, but make sure the comp is based on what it would be if it was all fixed up. That's what I would say. Okay. So let's do a second example, more math for you guys. Okay. So here's the second example. ARV is $275,000. Repair costs are $25,000. What should your offer be? Put it in the chat. So once again, we took that 75. We're going to take that 70% to get that number, and then we're going to subtract $25,000 to see what number we should be at. So what do we got?
16750 500.
Or Jose, just tell everybody. That sounds good. Yes, 167 500 is what you're getting. I see Renzo got that. I see Tinashe got that. 167.5. You guys got it right. 167.5. So what's the beauty about that, man? This is a simple formula, guys. Now you should feel comfortable now saying, hey, you know, I'm looking at, let's say you got an email from a wholesaler. Okay. So let's say you got an email for a wholesaler and they're telling you this is a great deal. Okay. Well, no problem. So you go into that property, you find out the address, you do the comp, you find out the ARV, what you feel the ARV, because everybody's got their own opinion on this, right? But investors want to be conservative too. I mean, they're not going to, you know, just price it at this estimate, you know. So you do a great comp, you get the ARV, you take 70%, you look at the property, you look at the pictures of the property, or you look at what the wholesaler's telling you the repair costs are, you subtract it from that and see if you get the same number as the wholesaler. So now you got a better, you might get a more conservative number and say, hey, you know, I think we should go in at this. I'm like, I got an investment deal right now, Mr. Investor. That's priced at 187.5. Honestly, I think you're better off at 167.5 with the numbers that I'm doing. Let's go ahead and make that offer. Man, you're going to be incredibly valuable to your investors. Does this make sense, guys? Everybody raise their hand if this all makes sense to you. This is a simple formula that makes a lot of sense. And this is in like, okay, so that's it. Guys, don't overcomplicate this, okay? So let's talk a little bit about wholesaling, okay? So once again, I touched on it, but let's just talk about it real quick. So the basics of wholesaling are like this. This is what you need to know about wholesaling. One, it's flipping the contract. Like I told you, you don't have to spend your own money. There's people out there doing it, but if you can do this yourself. I mean, you have the opportunity to do it. Yes, if you're an agent, you're allowed to be a wholesaler if you want to. Personally, I only think you should be a wholesaler as an agent if you find a deal that you know you can make a significant amount of return in. Because I think sometimes people think wholesaling is so sexy simply because you don't have to spend your own money and you get to flip a contract. But guess what, guys? When you average out what most wholesalers make on a property, your commission ends up being more than that. So why don't you just be the agent, you know, rather than trying to, you know, convince somebody to buy, you know, to buy the property at this, find an investor to flip the contract to just so you can make $5,000. Why would you do that? You know, why don't you find a deal, become the agent on that deal, help that investor resell that deal? That's my thoughts on it. But I mean, but don't get me wrong. If you find a sick deal and you know you can easily make 50 grand on it, why not wholesale it? Who knows, right? So flipping contracts, there's no deposits. That's something different. Now, most wholesalers that I mentioned to you will put a deposit down because they've got some backing behind them. They're okay putting $1,000 down for a contract. But guess what? When I used to wholesale, I wouldn't even put a deposit down. I would just say, give me, you know, X amount of days to try to find an investor for this, and people would sign the contract even without me putting any money anywhere. You'll figure that out, that a lot of people are in a desperate situation and they'll take whatever they can get. Assignability. So just know that with wholesaling, you can't submit a wholesale contract without the contract being assignable. So for those of you guys who ever receive an as-is contract, there's a section there called assignability. If any of the boxes are checked that allow you to assign that contract, if you're like, let's say you're a listing agent, you should have a little flag go up and say, oh, I'm dealing with a wholesaler because they're looking to assign this contract. So I would call that person and ask more questions. And there's nothing wrong with wholesaling, but traditionally, if you're a listing agent and you receive a wholesale, a contract from a wholesaler, it's probably not your best thing to do if you're getting attention from other people or if you just listed the property. So in other words, if I'm 3 days into my listing and a wholesaler offers me a deal, well, I'm going to wait for a traditional deal because remember, a wholesaler is not going to buy it himself. He's going to go pitch it to his people, and then you're going to hope that somebody wants to buy it. I don't want to do that to my client, right? I'm going to wait it out. But let's say it's been on the market for 120 days, and I'm getting and I haven't had any good offers on this property, and a wholesaler comes in and says, "Hey, look, I'm wholesaling it. Give me a shot for 7 days to find an investor for it." Hey, I've done that before and I've won. You know, I've had a property that needed so much fix up that traditional buyers weren't buying it. Even normal investors weren't buying it. And a wholesaler gave me a deal. I called him up. I said, "It looks like you're wholesaling the property. Is that true?" He's like, "Yes." I see that you want a 7-day inspection period. So you're basically going to pitch this to your investors for the next 7 days. And if you can get it done, then that's cool. He confirmed that was true. I said, okay, cool. And my next question was this: out of curiosity, do you already know somebody who will probably buy this? Because good wholesalers usually have their buy boxes pretty tight, and they know that Sarah buys property like this all day. So I like to ask that, do you actually have the person that you think will buy this? And that guy actually was like, yeah, I've got like at least 2 guys that I think will hop on this. I said, great, no problem. Told my seller what the situation was. They agreed. They signed the contract. Guess what? That wholesaler found me an investor to buy it. So don't be all, get away from me, wholesaler. Work with them, but know that you're not going to want to accept a wholesale offer, you know, when you got a sexy property or if you just listed your property. Is probably not the best practice. And once again, I want to remind you that oftentimes when wholesalers show you a property or pitch you a property, your commission is not included. So if a wholesaler sends me a property and says, "Hey, I want to sell it for 160," once again, I'm asking them, can I get a commission off of that? And if they say no, then I might sell it to my investor for 170, you know, and make sure that my commission's in there. Okay, so just keep that in mind when it comes to wholesalers. So I'm gonna ask you guys a little quiz. What do you think is the #1 key to wholesaling? I want you, don't shout it out loud, anybody. Just put it in the chat. I want you, just take a guess. What do you think is the #1 key to wholesaling successfully? So if you were trying to be a wholesaler, okay, what do you think is the #1 thing that's going to help you become a good wholesaler? Put that in the chat real quick. I'm curious to see what people answer. Have good connections. Jacquel, can you expand on that? Comps, marketing, networking. Find a good deal. Yes, great. Connection with investor, list of investors, knowing your ARV. All fantastic answers. The one that I would go with, #1, is what Renzo said, right? It's your list of investors. Okay, guys, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the wholesaler that puts contracts in and can't deliver. So building a great investor list is great, what you should do anyway as an agent. So by you asking the questions that I taught you, by you having a solid list of people who have cash that can buy quick and you know exactly what they buy, you can get aggressive with these wholesaling deals and you can go after them because you know that Cindy's going to buy this all day long. So your list of investors is really, so you want a big list, but you also want a really solid quality list, right? People you know will come through, people you know that have the cash and will make a move with you. And as you do this more, you'll know who those people are. Okay, so great job. Your investor list was the answer. Great job, Renzo. And some of the other guys who answered, I know you guys meant by connections and investors that's what you were trying to answer. Okay, so once again, wholesalers are a great source of investors. I've used two of the biggest deals that I've done, two of the $1 million deals that I've done through wholesalers because I knew I had a good investment deal. And I reached out to a wholesaler and I said, hey, bud, got a deal here. It's not going to last long. I've already done the numbers on this. I know it's a great deal. I don't want to waste any time. I know you got a list of 10,000 investors. Who do you think will buy this? And guess what? 2 days later, they had somebody for me. Yes, I took a little bit less commission because I had to split some of the monies between a few people. But guess what? Still made $20,000. I feel happy about that, and I got the deal done. I'm the kind of person when it comes to investing that I rather turn and burn. Don't wait for something in the future to happen that you hope happens. If you can make money now, you can get that sold. I don't care if the wholesaler makes some money too. If he's going to guarantee me that I'm going to get that 20 grand commission, I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to wait because good deals won't last very long. I got Eddie here saying when working with wholesalers, do we always ask about our commission right away? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is a different conversation, right? Wholesalers are just hustlers trying to get their money too. So they understand that you're not going to do this unless you're getting paid. So yeah, ask them right away. Hey, out of curiosity, that price doesn't include any money for you. I've actually had wholesalers say, hey, Bob, you're a cool guy. Hey, tell you what, I'll give you 2 grand from my side. If you want to add some more on top, cool. Okay, cool. So I know if I sell it at 160, I'm going to get 2 grand from him. Okay, cool. I'm going to add another $5,000 to it and sell it to 165 to one of my investors so that I get $7,000 or what I think would be the solid commission on that. So yes, Eddie, ask him right away. No problem with that. So let's get to rentals, which is, Nick's the master at this. So I'm glad I got him on board for this. Okay. So now let's talk about rentals or buy and hold investments. Okay. I want to repeat this again. Income is the only outcome. You want to put vehicles in here that produce you income while you sleep. And that is why investors buy rentals. That's why they buy and hold. They're more concerned with cash flow than making a quick pop. Okay. And there's some really sexy things about buy and hold investments that you need to know. Okay. So here's the basics of rentals. Okay. So buy and hold. Okay. These are longer term investments. It's exactly what it says. When you hear buy and hold, you hear somebody wants to buy a rental property. Okay. That's what you equate it to. And they're a little bit different because remember, fix and flip's short term. Fix and flip, you're trying to get in and out in 3 months. Long-term investment, you're trying to hold. Okay. So you bought this for the purpose of residual income, for you to make cash every single month and keep that property. Okay. For a long-term basis. The purchase price of rentals for an investor depends way more on the income. Okay. It's not necessarily what things are comping for. That's a big difference, guys, from a fix and flip where you're doing comps for ARV. Now I'm looking at a property and saying, what is this property worth based on the income it produces? Or like Nick mentioned earlier, the income it could produce, right? Because they could be renting it out at a very low rate right now, and there's a value add opportunity. There's an opportunity to raise rents. So this usually means that the offer price is more flexible, less lowballing. So what's cool about working with buy and hold investors is that because they're not necessarily looking to fix and flip it, right? So they don't need these huge 30% margins. Remember how we took 70% of this? We don't have to do stuff like that anymore. What all the buy and hold person is looking at is based on what the income this property can produce, does it fit my investment parameters and is it going to make me enough money? And you know what? You might be able to offer somebody full price on the property because the numbers just work as far as the income it produces. So you're probably going to get a little bit less lowballing, even though you'll still get lowballing in that market. And what I like about buy and holds is you're less exposed to cycles. Okay. So what if once again, in a crazy world, there was a pandemic. I know this can never happen, but let's say a pandemic happens, right? And you were in the middle of a fix and flip. Okay. So you went in, you bought this property based on the market value at the time. And this was like a month before the pandemic. You didn't even know about the pandemic at the time. And then you bought the property at what you thought was a great price. You have your repairs in it. You thought your ARV was going to be X, and a pandemic hits and suddenly ARVs drop drastically. Guess what, guys? You just got caught. You just got caught. But guess what? If you're with a buy and hold investment, you don't care about that much, because you know what? The people who are renting from you still got to rent. They got to pay their rent, right? You might have lost some equity in your property, but you're not looking to sell right now. You know, the cool thing about buy and hold people is they can sell when the market is up, right? When they decide to sell. So, you know, when I'm talking to buy and hold, and if you're talking to a buy and hold investor and they say, well, what if the markets go down? I said, what do you care? As long as you're getting the rental return, if you paid the right price and are getting the right rental return on that property, if a pandemic comes and your value drops temporarily, even if it's for a year, guess what? Wait till it comes back up and then sell it then. You know, keep earning the income on the property. So you're less exposed to those cycles that we were talking about before, okay? So keep that in mind as a rent, buy and hold investor. Okay, so let's look at how we value the property. So this is totally different. So I'll stop right here before I go into this, Nick, and I want you to explain what you believe is probably the best investment type for rentals, and what you look for, what you tell your investors to buy.
So the way I look at it is that I'm going to try to have as low recurring expenses as possible. So I try to stay away from properties that are an HOA unless it's just a really good sale price, because that is something that is never going to go away. Your HOA dues, people that are buying condos that are $250, $200 a month HOA dues, that is a profit eater. So I try to stay away from those as much as possible. Now, every once in a while, you're going to come across a good deal, a good, condo that's like 50 or 60 grand that's going to rent out for $1,200, $1,300 a month. You can't pass those up, obviously, but I try to stay away from those as much as possible. Okay. I also try to stay away from properties that are going to have, ancillary expenses that are going to have to be added into the rent. Like, are you going to be in a nice neighborhood where you're going to have lawn care included in the rent because the HOA is going to be on top of you, for, having to, make sure that lawn is in good condition. When you have that, you're not going to get 100% of your return back on that. Like, if it costs you $125 to have a monthly lawn service in there, you're not going to be able to add that $125 into the rent every single time, because it's just not going to be feasible. I try to stay in places that are not going to be as high rents. Like, if you start getting into $2,000, $2,500 a month rent, those are going to be harder to find tenants, especially in a time like we're in right now in a pandemic, where you're going to have a harder time finding tenants, and they're going to be tenants that are going to turn over more. Okay, if you can afford $2,000, $2,500 a month rent, you can afford to buy a house and you can afford to pay a mortgage. If your rent is, between $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month, you're going to have people that are going to be staying in there longer. So less vacancy, less turnover, less cost when a property goes empty and you have to, paint or replace carpet or clean or do these kind of things that are going to be an expense to you. So I try to stay in the $1,200 to $1,500 a month range. Try to stay in the single family home, even if there is an HOA. Usually single family homes, the HOAs are low price, so it's a cost you're willing to carry. And I try to stay in areas that are going to be a little bit more of a commuter area. And what I mean like that is like Deltonas, Eustis's, those areas, because those are people that are going to be more populating in that area. They're going to get a better deal for their price. You're going to be able to rent a home for $1,200 or $1,300. That is going to be a better quality home than at $1,200 or $1,300 in a more populated area like Orlando or like Lake Mary or those higher priced areas.
That's huge, guys. I mean, you're getting this directly from somebody who works with investors day in and day out, that works on leasing those properties in these areas. Those are all huge nuggets right there. Buying in those areas. I mean, you could be a hero for your investor. And when you're investing, you should be looking at the same things. I mean, there's, you know, I've been talking with Nick about one of his investors, and you know, we've been looking in Deltona, in Eustis. Why? Because these places still have great, they're great rental areas, but they still have great prices. Remember, this is all going to come down to numbers, right? So you're not going to get your, you know, buying a $300,000 home, you know, most likely is not going to give you the right rental. You're not going to be able to rent that for $1,200 to $1,500 and make money.
So
right?
Bobby, you've got a question from Jacquel. He's asking, what's a good percentage return to consider?
Yeah. We're going to get to that right now. So Jacquel, we're coming up on that. So a couple of things. One, guys, do me a favor, and for those guys that can, please turn on your video. It helps me so much to kind of see your faces. If you can, like, you know, if you're on a toilet, don't do it. But if you guys are anywhere, you know, I like Mark. Mark's got a great background. You know, he's playing with the green screen backgrounds. Go ahead, yeah, show me your face. Even if you got your shirt off, Jacquel, it's fine. No judgment here. Jorge, I see you. Renzo, Irina, Juliana, Danilsa, if you guys can turn on your video. There we go. Look at these pretty faces, man. This makes my classroom look so much better. Please turn on your video if you can. So let me answer a few questions while they turn on their video. Because Jose, I didn't forget about you. So Jose asked, being a listing agent, can I still be a flipper? Okay. Yes. I mean, I'm assuming you're asking, like, if you're listing a property and you realize that it's a good deal and then you want to buy it yourself. Yes, absolutely. You got to kind of play a fine line there, because, you know, if somebody's asked you to help them sell their property, well, number one, if you talk to them and you're honest with them, you know, you don't ever want to, like, trick somebody into selling something way below market value, right? So you got to tell them the truth and say, hey, you know, hey, look, I think your property can probably sell retail for this amount, but it'll take this long to sell. You might have to do some repairs to get it sold. You might have to do this. I can offer you this amount in cash right now to sell your property. And this is why things like express offers are valuable. You can go in there with a cash offer from a flipper and say, hey, here's your options to sell it on the market. Here's your options if you want to get a cash offer today that you can sell this property for. So you can absolutely do that. Or I have a situation right now where let's say you're listing a property, guys, and it's just not selling, right? You listed it, you know, the property's quirky. I have a commercial property right now. It's a great property, but it's for such a specific person that I haven't had traction selling it. Well, you know, maybe this is a commercial property. I could say to them, hey, look, it's not selling. Myself or some investors that I know are willing to buy this property for you. I mean, we've been on the market now 200 days. It's not moving. You know, would you be willing to accept the cash offer for this? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, you as an agent can do that, but just make sure you're very honest with your client so that you're not tricking them, right? Don't get somebody to sell you something for way low when you know you can get them way more money. So the other question is that what's the percent return considered good return, buy and hold investment? Okay, so we're going to get to that right now. Okay, so let's talk about the ways we value the property. Okay, so this is where we're going to get to this, Jacquel, which is the most important way to value a rental for investment purposes is to figure out how much income the investment produces and decide what you will pay based on the return you are seeking. So this is not a traditional comp situation. Now, I still comp the property because if you want to hit like the trifecta, or if you want to hit the money ball with this, what you would love to do is buy a property at a price that gives you a great rental return and equity at the same time. That would be incredible. But sometimes it doesn't always match up with that. And when it comes to rentals, it's really about the income it produces. Okay. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here's the rule of thumb, Jacquel. This is simple. I'm giving you another rule of thumb. Once again, this is not scientific proven fact. This is a way for you to quickly analyze a property and get a number to know what you're working with, to know whether this is even in the ballpark of us taking a look at this, right? Because if it's totally out of the ballpark, don't waste your time on it, guys. It's not a good investment, because if they're asking 300 grand and you know you have to get it for 150, to even make it worth it, guys, let's find something else. Let's go to a different area that has better prices. Okay. So here's what they call, and you'll hear this in the investment world, the 1% rule. Whenever somebody says, oh, I go by the 1% rule, some people are like 2% rule, whatever, 1% rule. So here's the rule. 1% of the purchase price of the property plus repair costs should be the monthly rent amount. What do I mean by that? Okay. If I buy a property for $90,000, but I include the repair costs. So let's say I have to fix it up and put 10 grand into it. So all in, I'm into this property. I've literally paid for this property $100,000 total with my purchase price and repairs. Then if I take 1% of that number, that should be my monthly rent. Okay. So what does that mean? So if I have $100,000 property and I paid $100,000, I should be getting at least $1,000 a month in returns. Okay. And so Jaquel, I'll ask you, let's say the property is $175,000. Like everything I paid into it, the purchase price of repairs comes out to $175,000. What should my rent per month be? $1,750, right? That's an easy thing, man. You don't have to do ARVs or nothing, man. When you look at a property that's listed on the MLS or you find a good off-market deal, right away I could take 1% of it and know. Yeah. Hey, look, is this a good rental? It's for $300,000. Can you get $3,000 in rent? And you can't? Okay, walk away. You can't do it. It's too far off. Right?
I'm sorry, Bobby. My question was like, I have a couple of customers that they wanted to buy like rental properties, and they were asking me which would be a good percentage on return. Like how much percentage is a good return? 6%, 8%. I'm sorry.
I believe for most buy and hold, okay. I would say that anything 8% or above is pretty good. Okay. I mean, if you're getting 8% return, I mean, you're getting like negative return as a bank, I mean, getting an 8% return is really solid. Okay.
5% will be considered normal.
What's that?
5% will be considered like normal.
5% is average. You're probably not going to get, I mean, like I said, it all depends on the parameters of your investor. And what they believe is great for them. I mean, so a situation would be like this. Let's say, some foreign investors that are coming from, Venezuela, and they're trying to put money in the United States. Well, in Venezuela, they're literally getting probably money robbed from them. Okay. So you give somebody from Venezuela a 5% return and they're going to hug you forever. Right. Yeah. So depending on who it is and the questions that we ask them about, say, look, because if somebody says they're okay with a 5% return, that's going to give you a lot more leeway to find a good property for them, right? You're going to be able to find them more properties than somebody who must have an 8% return, because those are harder to find, right? So, almost every like buy and hold investor will probably tell you 10% is what they love. But I think that they should be willing to accept an 8% return or something close to it. And that's the reason we use the 1% rule, Jaquel, because when you think about it, let's say it was that $100,000 example, okay? You spent $100,000 and your rent should be $1,000 a month. How much money are you going to make per year gross rents on that? $12,000, right?
Well, that I understand. Yeah.
Right.
To that you have to deduct all the expenses and everything, right?
Then that's why we use that, right? Because technically it's a gross return of 12%. Okay. But we know there's expenses. So that'll bring you back down to that 8, 9, 10% return when you factor in vacancy and whatever. Like I said, this is not a true accurate. You can do a spreadsheet and do it accurately. You can calculate the income it's going to produce. You can put your, a number in there for maintenance expenses. You can put a number in there for potentially having vacancy for 2 months out of the year. And you can get really conservative on your numbers and say, hey, this is what the return is really going to be. It's actually going to be a 7.9, yeah, it made 12 grand in the year, but when we factored in all that stuff, we factored in these fees, and maybe I can get Nick to kind of give you a formula for, what do you calculate usually for maintenance, every month or per year?
The way,
Well,
yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
What I tell people as a very conservative estimate is that your maintenance overall over the lifetime of your property is going to add up to 1 month's rent a year. Okay. Now, some years it might be a half a month's rent. Some years it might be a month and a half. That is the total amount that I factor in it. That is considering, 15 years down the road, if they keep it for 15 years, replacing the roof, that takes into account having to, replace an air conditioning, a water heater, the big ticket items. So I basically always say a safe estimate is 1 month's rent a year to put in for maintenance.
There you go. So right there, in that example we gave, Jacquel, we're already down to 11,000, right? From 12,000, right? And then we can take out some of the other expenses, the taxes, insurance, things like that we know we need to, take out whatever we need to take out to give that conservative number. But what I like about the 1% rule, it's so easy to do on the fly, right? To just, more than anything else, just know whether you're even in the ballpark. So that's just a good rule of thumb there to have. So let's go back to the math problem here. So I have a purchase price of $135,000, guys. I'm going to put $15,000 in repairs. For the 1% rule, how much monthly rental income, put it in the chat, don't say it, should I be earning per month, just as a baseline number? Okay, so I paid $135,000 for it. I spent another 15, okay? And what should be based on the 1% rule? How much monthly rent should I be getting? I got Eddie saying $1,500 a month. I got Mark saying $1,500 a month. I got Danilsa saying $1,500 a month. So some of you guys might be right, all right? So exactly right. We're talking about $1,500 per month because we spent $135,000 to buy it. We spent 15 grand to get it to rental shape. And I'm all in for 150, 1% rule, $1,500 a month. If this thing's getting $950 a month and that's the max it can get, we need to walk away, right? We need to walk away from this investment. It's not very good. Or let's use Nick's example. What if it's earning $950 a month currently, and that's what the seller told you, but you talk to Nick and Nick tells you, no, man, this gets way undervalued. This should be earning easily gets $1,500 a month once you get a new renter in there. Well, now you have some inside knowledge where you can say, hey, you know what? We could pay a little bit more for this property and still get the return that we want. So moving on, and this will be kind of the final thing. So I'm going to touch on commercial investments. We're not going to go too deep into it, but I want you to touch on this. So as many of you guys know, we also do a series called Commercial Crushers, where we're really looking for residential agents that want to convert or learn more about commercial. And the cool thing about commercial is besides terminology and certain things, it is a different animal, but it's not as hard as you might think. And that's really the sentiment I want most of you guys to pick up on when it comes to commercial is you can absolutely learn it. You can absolutely start doing it right now. And you start with fundamentals, and as you learn more of commercial, you'll know more of the more intricate formulas. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the basics when it comes to commercial. So let's get into the math again. Okay. So one of the terms that you're going to hear with commercial real estate is cap rate. Okay. Cap rate is a term that's used all the time, or they'll say cap. What's the cap? When somebody says, what's the cap? They're asking you what the cap rate is. And all cap rate is return on your investment, right? So for instance, let's talk about the rental we just talked about, Jacquel. So if we're talking about that $100,000 example, right? And let's say that $12,000 was the net, right? That's what it produced, net income after expenses. It produced $12,000 a year. Okay, that's a 12% return or a 12% cap rate. That's all it means. It just means what is the rate of yearly return based on what you paid for that property, right? What is it? So It's the same thing. And even rental guys who do single family homes will often say cap rate too. So that's something that they'll also say cap rate when it comes to single family homes. So all it is what percent return. Okay, so let me show you what the formula is for that. So cap rate, or return on your investment, is net operating income. That's what NOI is, net operating income divided by the purchase price. Okay, so net operating income is that final number, right? It's not the gross, right? It's not the initial 12. It's 12 minus whatever the expenses are. It's what you net at the end of the year. And then you divide it by what you paid, and it gives you a rate of return, okay? The formula that I gave you below, I would take a picture of this screen, because that formula below this, the one that says net operating income divided by cap rate times purchase price, is a very handy formula, because what it'll allow you to do is reverse engineer. You can solve for one of these if you have two of them, right? So for instance, if you need to figure out what the net operating income is of a property, then you just need to know the cap rate and you need to know the purchase price, and you multiply those two, right? And then you get the net operating income, right? If you're looking for the cap rate, which is the formula that I initially told you, then you can see that it should be net operating income divided by the purchase price. You just cover up the thing that you're solving for. So if you put your hand over the word cap rate, you'll see that it's net operating income divided by purchase price. If you cover up with your hand purchase price, so you're solving for purchase price, then you need to divide the net operating income by the cap rate, okay? So this is a really handy formula for when you have two out of the three things and you need to reverse engineer an answer, right? So cap rate is easy. It's NOI over purchase price. That's all well and good when you have the NOI and the purchase price. But if you need to solve for something else, which I'll give you an example in a second, it's good to have that second formula so that you can just cover up what you're solving for and do the formula. So let's get into it real quick, okay? Example number one, get your calculators out, guys. Get your calculators out. We're gonna do some commercial calculations here. All right, so real simple from what we've spoken about, okay? If I tell you that whatever this property is, right, whether it's a apartment complex, and this is specifically talking about investment commercial sales, people who are buying commercial properties for investment. So it could be an office building, it could be an industrial building, it could be a multifamily building. It doesn't matter as long as people are paying you rents just like they would in a single family rental to be a part of it. That's an income producing property. So when you have that and you ask for the income statement from that listing agent, you're gonna ask them for this number, or they're gonna give it to you right off the rip because they know this is how you're gonna calculate it. So they tell you that, hey, this commercial property produces you a net operating income of $130,000 a year. Okay, that's why commercial properties are sexy, right? They can produce you a lot of income in one property. So here's this property, it's $130,000 a year, and the purchase price is $1.9 million. My question to you guys is, what's the cap rate? I've already got Jaquel saying 7%, okay? What is the cap rate, guys? So let me remind you what the formula again. Cap rate is net operating income divided by the purchase price. Somebody else got a little more specific, said 6.8, 6.8, okay? Anybody else want to give it a shot? I got Renzo 6.8, Jose 6.8, Mark's at 6.8, Carla's at 6.8. Well, some of you guys might be right? So if you want to be super accurate, it's 6.84. That's your return on that investment. You know, that's your cap rate. Your cap rate 6.84, and it's not a terrible cap rate. To give you guys the same question that, that was a great question, Draquel, on the last thing. Very similar. What I find with commercial real estate is you're not, if a property produces you an 8% cap rate, people will hop on that all day, okay? But even 6.84 is pretty good. I have investors that will buy at a 6.5 cap rate, depending. Cap rates really depend on areas, building styles, the investor. So there isn't a hard and fast rule. But what I can tell you is if you ever get something with an 8 cap, you got something good, right? You got something really good. It should fly, whether it's an apartment building, apartment complex. But once again, I have investors that'll buy something at a 6% cap, because they might buy it and say, hey, I'll buy it at a 6% cap right now, but I know that I'll be able to increase rents by 5% a year for the next 5 years. I'm going to do some fix up to the property and increase some rents. So I don't want you to say, oh man, this is a 6 cap and nobody's going to buy it. I want you to look at it and say, okay, this is a decent deal. You know, is there any value add opportunity? Can this property be fixed up and charge higher rents? What's the opportunity for them? So just kind of keep in your mind, but just know, man, you ever get something that's an 8 cap. I mean, I got investors all day that buy 8 caps, you know, and so does Nick, right? So that's your cap rate. Okay. So let's do another problem. Example number 2. So now let's use the other formula we talked about. So this one's a little bit harder. Now we're going to reverse engineer. So let's use the same net operating income. Okay. So let's say it's the same property. So you went and looked at this. You looked at a property for your investor. They told you it was priced at $1.9 million and made $130,000, right? And we just did that calculation and we know it's a 6.84 cap. But you're working with an investor that says, I'm not buying anything that's under a 7.5 cap. Okay? So does that mean that deal is dead? No. We just got to offer something different to make it a 7.5 cap. So I'm going to ask you what to do that. So remember, if I have 2 of the numbers, I can solve for the third. Okay? So if I have a same property, net operating income is $130,000, and my investor wants a 7.5% cap. He's not going to buy anything that's under a 7.5% cap. Okay, what should the purchase price be? So I'll give you guys the formula again. So once again, I'm solving for the purchase price. So if I cover that purchase price up on that bottom formula, then I know that I have to take my net operating income and divide it by my cap rate. Okay, net operating income divided by the cap rate that my investor wants. Okay, so I got some of the right answers, and I got 2 right answers in the chat, and I got 2 wrong answers in the chat, which is okay. Thank you for trying, because this is what I want you to do. Okay, so the real answer is 1.733 million. How did I get that? I took that 130,000 and I divided it by a 7.5% cap rate, and now I know that I can offer 1.733 million for this property, and if they accept, which is not that big a difference on that type of price property, now I can go in and say, okay, cool, I'm going to offer $1.7 million for my investor and see if they'll take it. And you know what his max is? It's 1.733. Out of curiosity, Sylvie, how did you get 975?
I divided the, I think the 7.5 by the, or was it by the 1.9? Here, by the 1.9 mil.
Okay. So in this particular case, you used the price that was previously. What we were solving for was what we should offer. We know it's listed at 1.9, but my investor has specifically told me that he will only buy at a 7.5 cap. So I got to figure out what the new price I need to offer is at. And it was right on the money, which is 1.733 million. So does that, raise your hand if that all makes sense to you guys? Is this crazy math? Is this like out of control math? No, this is
easy. Yeah.
It's very simple. And guys, you are now more educated about investments after this presentation than even probably 95% of people who want to invest, you know, and definitely any agent out there that wants to work with investors. And these are very simple formulas. What I've given you is principles. And as you go along, you're going to learn more and more and more and more. But these are the basics. You can go do business with this right now. Okay. So before we end it and go to some questions, I put Nick's information on the screen here. This is, and Nick, you could also put this in the message if you want, but you know, here is Nick's email. Here is his phone number. Guys, if you're working with somebody, here's how you can use Nick. Number one is if you get somebody who says they want to rent, okay, they want to rent a property right now. First thing you should always do is try to convince them to buy. So there's a lot, you know, honestly, you know, renting right now, if they have the ability to buy, they need to go, you know, get them with Home First Lending. That's our preferred partner. Go ahead and get them with them, get them pre-qualified, let them know that they can borrow money the cheapest in history. Okay. So for that same 15 or, 1750 that they were going to pay in rents, they can buy a 250, 275 $1,000 home. Guys, own your own property. And by the way, they can write off the mortgage interest. Okay. Yes, Mark, I have recorded this. So I will share this. So you need to convince them of that. You need to let them know rates are at historical lows. Rents are at historical highs for Orlando, right? So there's a good time to buy. But let's say they come to you and say, look, Bobby, I understand all that. I did all that stuff. My credit's terrible right now. I just need a place to live, or whatever the case may be. You call Nick Guadagnino up and he's going to help them find a rental, and you're going to get a referral fee for that rental. Nick, what does a referral fee end up being on property you rent out for them?
So if you send us a tenant, it's 10% of whatever the rent is. So simple math, $1,000 property, $100 referral fee, $2,000 property, $200 referral fee, so on and so forth.
Right. And here's the thing, Nick's going to send that person back to you when they're ready to buy. Okay. So that's the one thing you have to know about Nick. Nick doesn't do real estate sales. He just does rentals. So you tell Nick, hey, Nick, this is my guy, Jim Smith. Go find him a rental. But guess what? 6 months, 12 months later, when his credit is good and you've been following up with Jim and all that good stuff, and Jim comes to Nick and says, hey, I don't want to rent anymore, I'm looking to buy, Nick's going to call you back up and say, hey, Jim's ready. Go ahead and give him a call back up. So that's why you want to work with a guy like Nick. Another way you can use Nick is if you have investors that are having a tough time managing their own portfolio, he can take that over for them. If you have an investor that has a multifamily property, multiple units. So whether anything from a duplex to a freaking, how many units do you go up to, Nick?
We could go up to, I think the most that we'll do in one particular building is 20 units in a building.
20 units. So from 1 unit to 20 units, if one of your investors does not want to manage their own properties, because an investor might come to you and say, hey, I don't want to buy another investment property, dude. I'm already overwhelmed with all the 10 properties that I got. And if you ask them, hey, are you managing those properties? They're like, yeah, dude, I get calls in the middle of the freaking night. Everybody's pipes busted, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, dude, I could solve this really easy for you. Let me connect you with Nick Guadagnino. He's going to take a fraction of those rents to ease up all that pain. You'll still make a great return. And now they call Nick. They don't call you. And if you got some vacant units and Nick needs to rent those out for you, don't worry. He's going to background check all those people. He'll do all the things that you were doing that you hate. Okay. Another way you can use Nick is, once again, leverage him to find out what rental rates are in an area. Leverage him to find contractors and things that you might need to do fix-ups. And anything else, Nick, you want to add to that?
Honestly, a lot of people don't realize that they're under market rent for their properties. Okay, if you have a guy that has 3 or 4 properties, he's renting them for each $100 less than he's supposed to be renting them for. He's going to get an extra $400 a month by coming to me, and that's going to enable him basically to pay for me and not have to come out of pocket any more than what he was getting. Number one. Number two, he's also going to get longer term tenants, better tenants than trying to find them himself. He doesn't have the access to our rental IQ software that we use to find great tenants. We guarantee tenants for 10 months. So if something happens to that tenant and they need to be evicted, or they lose their job, or they're in a pandemic and they lose their job, or something happens and they can't deal with it, we're going to help get that tenant out. We're going to find them a new tenant for free. We're going to pay for the eviction. And we have a lot of cost saving measures for these clients. And when you refer these clients to us, they're going to be taken care of. Like Bobby said, I am here 24/7. I answer my phone, whether it's 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock in the morning. When somebody calls me, I'm there for them. By providing that good customer service, they're going to see the value in it long term. And guess what's going to happen? After 2 years of getting great service, getting good returns on their property, having a good long-term tenant, they're going to say, hey, this investing thing is pretty good. I want to buy another one. I'm going to buy 2 more. And they're going to come directly to you because we don't do sales. So I'm going to refer them back to you. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when they go to sell this property because they want to cash out, guess where it's going? It's coming right back to you. And every person that you refer to me $350 referral fee. So you're going to be making money at the beginning when you help them buy the property. You're going to be making money at the end when you help them sell the property, and you're going to be making money from me in the form of a referral fee when you refer them to me. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Fantastic. We appreciate